Welcome everybody, and thank you for tuning into the channel. And today we are going to talk about something we all know and hate, the greatest common divisor, or how I like to call it, the greatest common nightmare. So today we are going to create a program in Java to find the greatest common divisor. And the Udemy programming Java software development masterclass has the question here. We're going to go over it, go over the logic, get us to understand really what we need to do in this problem, code it on the right side, run it, test it, and then test it against the Udemy tester on the left side. So let's start with reading the question. Write a method named getGreatestCommonDivisor with two parameters of type int named first and second. If one of the parameters is less than 10, the method should return -1 to indicate an invalid value. The method should return the greatest common divisor of the two numbers int. The greatest common divisor is the largest positive integer that can be fully divided by each integer, i.e. without leaving a remainder. For example, you have 12 and 30, and then they break it down for you here, showing you the numbers that are divisible by 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. And, excuse me, and then for 30, you have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, and 30. They explain this here. This is important because you need to know how the greatest common divisor works mathematically, or in other words, written down on paper. And here are a few examples. I'll do probably about 2 or 3 of the examples to show you guys that it works. And then we have some hints and some notes down here. Hint: use a while loop or a for loop to check if both numbers can be divided without a remainder. A hint: find the minimum of the two numbers. The method greatest common divisor should be defined as a public static, like we have been doing so far in the course, and do not add a main method to the solution. Okay, so let's get started. Now the hint that says right there, find the minimum of two numbers, I think that's really, that's a different way to look at it. I don't know, the way I'm thinking of doing it, I don't think it's going to have to pertain to the minimum. But if you guys do it pertaining to the minimum, go ahead. Or I may do a different video pertaining to the minimum. If you guys want that, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I think I'm going to use kind of like finding the maximum number. It's the minimum number amongst, it's just basically the greatest common divisor. It's the highest number that can be divided by both of the numbers. That's what the greatest common divisor is. Okay, so we do know it's going to return a number, so there's going to be return type int. The method's going to be called getGreatestCommonDivisor. And feel free to do the problem. You guys can pause it right here and do the problem first, and then start it back up again. It's completely up to you guys. And for our parameters, we know that our parameters are going to be first and second, and both type int. Okay. So the next thing we have to do is we have to verify that the numbers are less than 10. You can do this in two different ways. You can do it with a while loop or an if statement, but because of the wording, I'm just going to use an if statement. So if first is, we're just going to say greater than 10, and if second is greater than 10. Because basically we're saying if they're less than 10, it's going to be negative. So instead of doing it that way, we're just going to have a return of -1 if first and second are not greater than number. And we had an error down here. We're going to return number here. I'm going to initialize that variable right now. And what that variable is going to do is it's going to store the greatest common divisor, basically. So here, we'll just call it GPD, greatest common divisor. 0 stores greatest common divisor. Okay. I will change this down here so I won't forget later. Okay, so now we have it set up to basically if it's incorrect. So now let's deal with if it's correct. And we'll set up the main method real quick so you guys kind of know what I'm thinking of to help us step through the problem. So if we declare a variable, type int, we're just going to call it int num equals greatest common divisor. We'd have to call the method. We're going to use the two numbers here in the example. So we're going to use 12 and 30. And this is also going to help us so that when we run it, we won't have to rewrite the code in. And then we are going to print out the greatest common divisor number that is sent. We're just going to print that on its own, just so we can see it. Okay, so now we know that 12 and 30 are greater than 10. So now what we're going to have to do is now we're going to have to step through it and make sure that this is the greatest number of the numbers given. And how we're going to do that is with two different statements. We're going to use a for loop inside of an if statement. So we're going to start off with for int I, because what we're basically going to do now is step through each number and make sure that these numbers are divisible by that number. So first we're going to do is just check it amongst both. So if I is less than or equal to first and I is less than and equal to second, yeah, they have to be less than both, then we're going to increment. Okay, and then after it's checked to make sure that the number is less than both of them, then we are going to do an if statement where we check the math. So if first is mod by I equals 0 and second is mod I equals 0, then we're going to have greatest common divisor equal I. So just to give you guys a little explanation of what just happened, all that's happening here is of course that we're checking the numbers. So if it starts off at 1, it's going to check to see 1's less than 12, 1's less than 30 right here on line 8. When they're both less than the number, then it's going to take 1 and it's going to divide them both by first and by second. If the remainder is a 0, then it is divisible by both numbers and it's going to store in there. And basically the way this is set up is going to keep doing it till it can't anymore, and the number that obviously is the highest or the greatest is what's going to get stored, and then that's what's going to get returned. So if we run it here, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. If you guys learned anything new, please go ahead and leave it in the comments below. If you guys have any questions or any new ideas for what you guys may want me to go over, please leave it in the comments below. Okay, so you guys did see that worked. Yeah! Claps all around, claps all around. Leave a like, you know. So now we're going to try these other examples. I'm going to try 9 and 18 for you guys real quick. See if we get that right. And then we are going to try it against the Udemy tester. Now, based upon what we see on the left side, we should get a return of -1 because 9 is less than 10. We run it again. And we do get -1. Yeah! Now again, remember, please don't hesitate to ask any questions. I know this can be confusing at first, but once we keep practicing, it gets a lot easier. Okay, so now let's copy this over to the Udemy tester. And you guys know this is the real test because they give all possibilities. They are like the head honchos of decision making right now until we become those ourselves. So fingers crossed. You already know if we get it on the first try, leave a like. I know you have faith in us. I have faith in us. Okay, let's do this. No! So it says the method called is greater than 10 and 35, returns a value of -1, but it expected 5. I think the reason why it returned a value of -1 was because I think wait, why does it return -1? We go 1. So let's go to this fancy little website I found called Calculator Soup, and it'll show us the greatest common divisors. You can also do it on the calculator if you want, but it's a little faster. So it says the greatest common divisors is 5. But when we put it over there, it came out to be -1. So let's try it in Intellij, because sometimes it just doesn't work over there. I can always move it around if need be. This code always, sometimes it's the way it's compiled. Okay, so this does give us a -1. Oh, I know why. It's because right here on line 16, what we need to have put is we should have put as long as a number is greater than or equal to. Because we don't account for 10 in the problem. Okay guys, don't worry, we got it. So now we're going to rerun it in Intellij. I'll show you it works, and I'll fix it in Udemy and show you it works over there. Alright, so we got 5. Now if we scroll up here, we'll just fix that, and it'll work. So go ahead and leave a like, comment, subscribe. You know, we did it. We fixed the error. Errors are freaking scary, especially in coding. Yeah. And we got the correct solution. So I want to thank you guys for sticking with me through the problem, even though I had a little error there. I hope you guys learned something new. Just remember to keep coding and have a great day.